One of the most important things that I do to keep myself sharp and fresh is I continue to see clients. I continue to see couples, individuals, so that I can be in tune with their pain and their frustrations. One of the surprises in my work in bringing couples together and bringing marriages together is I didn't realize, and they don't talk about this very much in graduate school, to tell us that when people enter marriages, they often come with a very clear and distinct vision of how it's going to be, and they just start building in that direction. There's a lot of assumptions between a man and a woman when they come together, that if we have similar backgrounds or slightly different, we can work through it. If we have significant things to work through or smaller, that we will come together because we have the right or same ideas in mind for each other and for how the marriage is going to be. Then something happens over the next 7 years or so. The first year, any type of tug of wars that take place are kind of overlooked, like, oh, we'll work through that, oh, that'll be different after a little while. It's almost as if two people find themselves like pioneers crossing the plains, and they put their wagons next to each other and they start this journey, and then somewhere in the middle of Nebraska they go, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? And it's the first time they really look closely at the blueprints, the map, the plan for where they're going. And can you imagine their shock when they look at each other's maps and one is going to Florida and the other one is going to Oregon? Even this morning I met with a couple who's been married probably 30 to 35 years, and they aren't even noticing or realizing that they're pulling against each other constantly and have been for many years, and they never even considered checking the blueprints. If you would like to create more synergy and harmony, you're going to have to get on the same page, but the surprise is you don't do that by talking each other into being on the same page. That never works. You end up having resentful compromises. You end up having quiet intolerance. There's so many different reactions to being dragged along someone else's path. And so let me share with you the process I recommend in order to work through this. I just want you to know in advance, it's kind of scary at first. It's a little scary to go through this process. Step 1, separately from each other. Do not do this together. I know that sounds weird, but do not do this together. Go back to your teen years, your young adult years. Pull from your entire history, whatever has influenced your thoughts and your mind, etc., and start describing what might be called an I have a dream description of your ideal marital dynamic. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, etc. Include things that seem obvious. Like, I shouldn't have to write that down, that's so obvious. If you've been married for a little while, one element of this process is take anything that seems out of harmony, anything that's somewhat dysfunctional, start with that idea, and then flip it to your vision of how that would be functional. An example of one thing I saw earlier today. As this couple approaches projects, she thinks of them as she does most of the thinking, he does most of the doing, because that's where she sees their strengths are. In his mindset, we equally participate in the thinking part as the leader of the family, not controlling, but leader. He is the one writing down the list of what needs to be done. They divide it between the two of them, and she does half of the labor and he does the other half of the labor. And that's his vision of how a project should be approached. Which one's right? Doesn't matter right now. That's not the main point. The main point is they keep having these tug of wars, and they finish it with frustration and resentment instead of the edifying sensation of a completed project, because they didn't work off of the same blueprint. The first thing you do when you're doing this is get by yourself, get a piece of paper out. I recommend electronic paper so you can do a lot of editing. And just put right at the top of it, I have a dream. And then just start describing, I have a dream that it's going to be like this. One of the things you're going to start to notice, like an engineer would with blueprints, and he's trying to create a house, is when you start putting it on paper, you might find some contradictions or some discord that you didn't even realize was there in your head. And so sometimes another person will go, how is that supposed to work? Like, I don't even see how your ideas fit together. And we think they do fit together until you start building it. Your plan actually doesn't work. But you're not going to know that until you write it out. And for the sake of our egos, we prefer to discover that on our own, not with someone else saying, told you so. So start writing your blueprint and start checking to see if it even makes sense to you. She's writing hers, he's writing his. Now don't share them yet. Once you feel like it's rolling and you're starting to like it, then if you prefer to be someone who is inspired and led by God, take it to him and say, what do you think? That's a scary concept, because he might be going, you know, that part right there, that's kind of selfish. That part right there, that's kind of dysfunctional. And you're going, dang it, I really liked that part. I wanted that part. But you can't bring that in because it lacks wisdom. The next element of doing this, still, you haven't showed it to the other person yet. You have to review it and revise it the same way a musician reviews and revises their performance with music, because just because you can get the notes down doesn't mean it's going to run smoothly in your head. You got to keep reviewing it, revising it, fine-tuning it. If you've ever played a musical instrument like the cello or the violin, as you're playing it and you're getting better at it, you start making notes on the paper to remind yourself of some details, to make sure that you are playing it with your best skill and getting it into your head. As you're doing these statements, you want to keep reviewing and revising, reviewing and revising. There's so many different things that you could put in here. If you refer to the Marriage Repair Workshop online classroom platform, we have this all spelled out for you. Okay, the final process can be absolutely spiritually amazing. When you first bring your marital mission statements near each other, resist the temptation to approach it the way Americans do, which is fighting for compromise, fighting for the other person to give a little and take a little bit here and there. Before you do any of that, remember, you are going to hit a place where there is no logical solution to creating a hybrid of the two marital mission statements. We have a few miracles that we've seen that are absolutely amazing. One of them we see on a regular basis almost every day. You take the genetics of a woman, you take the genetics of a man, and when you put them together, the child that is born is not a compromise of those genetics. It's not an equal divvying up of those genetics. The final product of that union is a unique, breathing, hybrid, miraculous combination of the original two. This is the healthiest and most appropriate way and the most amazing way to bring two marital mission statements together. But it does require divine intervention, and you're going to have ideas that bridge the gap and solve problems that are as miraculous as the idea Moses had to part the Red Sea. Both of you are going to have to reach a place, a state of mind, where you're so invested in bringing the Spirit with you, you're so invested in bringing the Holy Ghost with you, that you're both going to be receiving revelations that are above and beyond anything you've ever seen before, that are totally miraculous, like a new baby in your hands that no one's ever seen before. I want you to have the dream of a miraculous combined marital mission statement, a combined blueprint, so that when you're not even together, like two construction workers that work on different days, they come and they work on the same blueprint and it brings about the same results. So many of the micro conflicts that take place in relationships are happening because they're working off of separate blueprints, and you show up one day and someone's done some weird stuff on the construction project and then you have to fix it, etc., back and forth. But when you experience the miracle of having similar or identical marital mission statements, and many of those elements came from inspiration and revelation, you will experience an edifying process of coming together that you never experienced before. I feel so much sadness and pain for the people I meet on the first stage of this, where they just can't see any solution to it, and they've been tug-of-warring for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. When I remember what it's like to interview and talk to those at the end of the process, the joy, the edification, the clarity, the beautiful psychological harmony, the spiritual interdependency, start working on this. I warn you, you're not going to know how to do it very well, and you're going to be very clumsy at it, and you might sound a little bit like I did when my first year playing the violin, where everyone just wants you to stop because it's just horrible. It's going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, it's going to sound weird, it's going to feel weird at first. Just keep practicing and practicing and practicing, writing and revising your marital mission statements, your marital blueprints, and we bring them together, we get revelations, it becomes one synergistically, just like a child is one entity, and you will love the results of it.